This is the Aunty and Brain Tumours talk show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Aunty and Brain Tumours talk show on podcast.
I was diagnosed with an astrocytoma on the 17th of August 1993. I was 16, and it was around that sort of time I'd started mentioning to my parents that I was getting these headaches, and my mum kept saying to me that I need to go to the doctor. I put it down to, because at the time I was doing a degree in architecture and I was over a drawing board, and I put it down to stress and also leaning over a drawing board and muscle spasms and stuff like that. Went for a massage in April to see if that would alleviate the problems, but it didn't. In the summer, my mum made sure I booked a doctor appointment and went to the doctor. He said that my blood pressure was normal, and that's how well that went. Anyway, my mum wasn't still not convinced, so she said I should go to the optician. That didn't really result in anything. Then I started going to see an osteopath and being treated for migraines. 3 days before my aunt's wedding, I had eaten something I shouldn't have done. I was into fatty foods, and anyway, I ended up ill, and I was going to be surprised maybe 3 days later. So I had the track record, so she knew what I was like. And she thought, oh, here we go again. My mum realised, hold on, I can't hear Lisa. Let me go and check on her. She found me kneeling over the toilet bowl, and I was rigid. I had had a seizure, and she thought I died. So mum pulled me out, and she had me saying prayers on the landing, laid out on the landing. And she's okay, she said her prayers now, so if she dies, it's okay, because she said her prayers. Mum's logic. And so she called an ambulance, and the ambulance came. I have no memory of this. The ambulance came and said they'd take me to, even though I was up and walking around by this point, they were going to take me to the hospital just for a checkup. So mum came with me in the ambulance, and we went to our local hospital, which is Chase Farm. We arrived there, but they didn't know what was going on at the time. And they said my vitals were fine. That was the thing. I had no high blood pressure. I didn't have any of those sort of symptoms. And so the ambulance paramedics felt it would be good to take me to the hospital, just give me a full checkup, an ECG and everything. And I got admitted into the hospital, into A&E. When I was in the hospital, I had another seizure. They said, we need to get her checked out tonight. Chase Farm Hospital tried to get me a bed at the Royal Free Hospital, and there were no beds. And so then they contacted Bart's, or St. Bartholomew's Hospital, and they were able to admit me. So I got transported by ambulance to Bart's, and I had a scan that night. But I woke up in hospital the next day. One of the consultants was coming around, and his name was Mr. Blackburn. Can't remember his first name, but he was amazing, this man. And he wasn't my consultant, though. He was surrounded by student doctors, or I think they might be registrars. I'm not sure what level they were. They might have just been students. So they were accompanying him on his rounds. And he said, Lisa, he said, okay, we've given you a CT scan, and we've discovered that you have got a cyst on a brain tumour, and it's in the front right hemisphere of your brain. We're going to do some more tests. And I had about a week and a half of tests before they would go in to do any operation. There I was in hospital. Then I was on like a concoction of pills. You could shake me and I'd rattle. I was having blood taken every day. And every now and then I was getting phone calls. And of course, inevitably, it was from relatives crying down the phone. And there's me going, I'm fine. No, I'll be okay. I'm going to be all right. I'm saying to them. And I felt like I was having to be brave for everybody else. And that was hard. That was really scary. I remember I was up on I think it was the 4th floor. I was in the UG Grace ward, and they even had his bat on the wall because they donated that. He was a cricketer, if you don't know anything about cricket either. Anyway, I was having to be brave. And I remember I was out on the balcony and I was bawling my eyes out. I was so scared and I didn't know what to do. The toughest challenge from my diagnosis was dealing with the dread of other people. It was actually dealing with the emotions of others, because there was something deep in me which drove me forward. And I was having to deal with the fact that I was the one that had the brain tumour. I didn't know who I could talk to. There were no support groups or anything at that time, and I didn't want to show it to my family. Yeah, it was really hard. But one of the nurses came out to find me and she asked are you okay? She could see I was not, but she was like, it's okay. We're here to help you. We're here to support you. Also, what didn't help, I got moved to another part of a ward before that, and I met a lovely lady. I suppose she was the same age as me. Her name was Val, and Val had already had 2 operations. She'd had her first operation when she was 16, and she suffered a stroke as well, and was learning to walk, talk, and write again, but with the left side. And the reason she was in the bed next to me is because she'd come back into hospital with a collapsed lung. And that girl was just a miracle on legs. She was just amazing because she never, ever gave up. And her boyfriend was always there right by her side. He wasn't at this point because it was too early, and she was trying to attract the attention of a nurse because she needed some help. And so I was able to get somebody to help her. We became friends there and then. Anyway, from that point, I got moved into another smaller ward with these 3. It was a ward for 4 people. And I was there were 2 beds by the window and 2 beds on the corridor. And the lady next to me, in the bed next to me, was very rude and very unkind in what she was saying. And she was like, I can't have the light on at this time, and you can't be doing this at this time and that time. And it's really important I have this and this. And I was like, oh, okay. And I thought, okay. And it was getting dark at this point, and I don't want to interact with that person. So I pulled the curtain across, and then she said, oh no, please, can you open the curtain? I feel claustrophobic. And then I realised the human inside of her came out. There was another lady, I don't really remember, and she was in the bed opposite her. But in the bed opposite me was this other sweet lady. In mine, they were also dealing with spine problems and things. I suppose it's all related, isn't it? And it's all neurological in the end. And there was a lady opposite me, and she had been in the hospital for about 6 weeks, I think. And she was really worried she was a much older lady, and she was worried about going home because she didn't know if she was going to be okay. And so I spent some time sort of chatting to her, and I can't remember if it was her family or who came to get her in a day or two's time. But the lady in the bed next to me eventually went as well, and I got moved into the bed by the window because I just had that many cards coming in, and I was inundated. In fact, I counted 120 in the end, cards that I received. And when I thought the outpouring of love also helped me to realise that if someone was in hospital, how much people coming, for me anyway, how much it helped me that people came to visit. I will always be thankful for them. And I've seen that quotes, people might forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. It's lovely. So anyway, my parents had arrived very early in the morning with my brother to see me go into my operation. And I said to them, I'm glad it's me that's going for the operation and I'm not the one that's waiting. I think waiting is going to be harder. Burst into tears when I saw the anaesthetists come in because I knew that was happening then. And I got taken up to the operating theatre. My operation was 7.5 hours long. And of course I had to be on I was on anticonvulsant, and then I was on codeine, believe it or not. They wouldn't give that now. I was on something to protect the lining of your stomach, so from the dexamethasone. So I was on steroids, and the steroid tablets just puffed me right out, and it was like I just kept eating. I couldn't stop eating. I think that my pituitary gland might have got too much because my period stopped completely at one point. And so I got referred to an endocrinologist. His name was, Dr. Ashley Grossman. Professor Ashley Grossman I got to see. And he was lovely. And that's how I found out I had growth hormone deficiency. The night of my operation, after my operation, the consultant came in. Mr. Hamlin came in. He said to me, he said to me, Lisa, what comes next? Mary had a little lamb. First of all, repeat that. Mary had a little lamb. And then what comes next? Its fleece was white as snow. And he said, now, what colour is this tie? And I said, it's red. He said, you were very well designed for this operation. And I said, thank you, as much as I could. So they were having trouble getting me out of the bed. and I didn't want to get out. So Dad persuaded, come on, let's go and have a look out of the window. Come on, let's walk and look out of the window. And so he persuaded me to take those first steps up to the window to have a look outside. And he said, don't you remember, Lisa? He said, all of the others on the ward were cheering. I said, I don't remember that, Dad. I don't remember that, which was really sweet. And also the muscle wastage happened so quickly as well. So because I'd just been in bed rest, really, I'd been getting up and moving around a little. It was a shock to me how before my operation, my mum was making me do it, walking up how many flights of stairs to the 4th floor. And then immediately after the operation, that was it. I couldn't do a thing. I was as weak as a baby. That really struck me. So I then had to go and get fitted for a radiotherapy mask. For getting the mask fitted, it was solid. It was like they vacuum formed it, basically. I had some mould made, and then they made like this vacuum formed piece of perspex, and they'd cut holes out for the mouth, a hole out for the mouth, a space for the nose and for the 2 eyes. And the thing is, it would clamp down onto that bench thing, so I couldn't move, and I'd always be in the same position. But now I think they've got this mesh stuff that they use instead, because they've got holes all over it, and it's a lot more breathable than the one I had. It was solid perspex, mine, moulded, and it was very restricted. I've got a first 1 or 2 sessions. I was like, oh, I can feel the laser, and I'm like, Lisa, just get a hold of yourself. You do not. It's a light. You can't feel it. Get over it. And once I did that, I was fine. And in fact, every time I'd go in, my dad said I was like a little ray of light, because I would just sit and chat to everybody. It's something I've continued to this day. I'll talk to anybody and everybody. I'm the person that says, bless you, and on the tube and smiles. It's others in the waiting room. I say, oh, so what are you in for? What are you being zapped for? I'd say. And so they'd share their story and I'd share mine. And it was a little bit of therapy going on. And that's it. It was really lovely to see, because they really appreciated being asked. And some of them were there for radiotherapy. Some of them were there for chemotherapy. And we were all on that journey, but we're all different. We're all on a different journey, but on the same road together, and with our different experiences. And I was there for 3 weeks and a day, and came home. Mum and Dad brought me home, and I had to have someone in front of me and someone behind me to go up the stairs, and it would take me a little while. And even to this day, I still, when I get up out of bed, I still raise myself up onto my side, and in the same way that I did after my operation. That's something that stuck. And actually, one little anecdote as well. When I went into the operating theatre, they only shaved one side of my head. And of course, the other side was all matted and horrible. And Mum's like, they could have just shaved both sides. But they had an ulterior motive. They had a reason to get me out of bed the next day to shave the other side. So I was like, I was mod Lisa. I was Lisa the mod. And at this point, I had really short hair, but just a scar. And I hadn't had any radiotherapy. And I'd gone to my friend's wedding. Or was it engagement? Anyway, it was one of those. It was a very Greek celebration. And so somebody there said, did you have to go to a barber's for that haircut? Or did you get it done at a hairdresser's? I said, actually, I got it done in an operating theatre. And my friends were like, oh God, I can't believe that person asked you this. I can't believe it. That's just so typical. I went, no, I love seeing people's reactions. Those were funny times. There were some really funny times. It was 17th of St. Patrick's Day, 2014. I got my all clear. It was just when they finally, and it was actually that Mr. Elamushi, who, when he discharged me, I couldn't believe it. I thought I'd been doing this for like half my life, going to these appointments. I didn't know it was my final appointment. This is the radiology consultant. And he said, Lisa, I don't think we need to see you again. Just, sorry, pardon? He said, no. He said, you're okay. You can go on and live your life now. But going to those appointments and going for those every couple of years MRI scans is what they turned into eventually. I became dependent on those, because they were like, is everything okay? Is everything okay? Oh, thank goodness they've told me everything's okay. And it would be like my little crutches to support me. And all of a sudden that was gone. And I was like, well, what do I do? He said, there might be other ways you can help others. And he didn't mention any of the organisations. And that's when I started researching. So I started looking for, like, not chat rooms, but groups to see if there were any, not therapy groups, but people who need support, brain tumours. And that's obviously how I came across you. and I came across brain tumour charity and brain tumour research. I did a 10K walk for the brain tumour charity, coming to terms with what happened afterwards. And it took me years and therapy to just try and understand it was okay to feel that pain and that trauma, and to have gone through that trauma, because I'm here and nobody else I met survived. And I was talking to somebody else recently, and I said, do you realise it's so rare for somebody to survive a brain tumour and live a normal life? And I'm holding down a job. I've bought my own home. I'm living what people would call a normal life. And I feel like I sometimes take it for granted, because it doesn't feel, there's things that I struggle with, trying to keep weight off or lose weight, and other issues that came up from the radiotherapy. So I've got growth hormone deficiency. I've discovered that I've always been ADD. And so there's lots of these other issues that I'm having to deal with as well, which they're normal, but people don't necessarily see that I went through a very life-threatening experience. And I don't even give myself a break for that sometimes either. If I could give anybody else from the experience I had, it would be to just keep positive, just keep focused on getting well. That's what did it for me. That's what made it possible for me. Keep on keeping on. And some parts are going to be rocky. Some parts are going to be hard. Some parts you're going to be looking into the sky and in amazement. And other times you're going to be in a crumpled heap on the floor, or even thinking you're at the bottom of a well. But without those lows, you can't have those highs. And without those highs, without the lows, you can't have the highs. And that's why I just come in every day positive. I would love to thank, I've already thanked my surgeon, Mr. Peter Hamlin, for all that he did. I've always been grateful to him. All of the other medical staff, the medical team were fantastic. My family, my friends, all of those people that came to see me or phoned me and support me the whole time I was there and going through this, I thank them too. Mostly, my thanks go to my family. My brother came to the hospital. My mum was very concerned that he wasn't coming every day, even though my parents had bought him a travel card, and he was sat next to me and he was stroking my hand. I'd fallen asleep and I didn't know he was there, and that meant so much, because I went into hospital 2 days before his 17th birthday, and I'd already wrapped and done I was 21, and it was his 17th birthday, and it was his birthday on the 19th of August, and I ended up in hospital on the 17th. But I had already written his card and wrapped his present. It was like I'd known, or some level. And my parents were there always, constantly. And I had over 121. I had 121 cards. I don't know how many bouquets of flowers. I don't know how many visitors. I just felt such love around me and such support. It was an amazing time. It was the worst. It sounds a bit like a Charles Dickens. It was the worst of times and it was the best of times. I was in this horrible situation. But before that happened, I thought no one loved me. I felt so alone. And it was like, here, this is how much you were loved. This is how much you were cared for. And that was what I got from that experience. And it will be with me for the rest of my life, however short or long it may be. Thank you, Claire. Thank you. Bye.
This is the Aunty and Brain Tumours talk show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Aunty and Brain Tumours talk show on podcast.